Last questions, George. In your earlier book, Life After Television, published again in 1990, you predicted computers as small as watches, speech recognition, mapping, navigation systems. You got a lot right. But you also predicted, this was in some ways the fundamental argument of the book, that as we went from broadcast television to the 500 channels of cable, and now, of course, we have the essentially infinite channels of Netflix and YouTube and all the rest, this direct streaming, as we did that, programming would no longer need to cater to the lowest common denominator. So we would no longer all be watching Claptrap, like the Beverly Hillbillies. You'd go online and you'd be able to pursue your interest in opera. Someone else would be studying calculus. Somebody else would be learning a language. We would be enlightened. We would be ennobled.
Well, that's true.
Well, some of that has happened.
Yeah.
But you didn't tell us that porn was going to be absolutely pervasive. You didn't tell us that kids...
I think I did tell you that porn would be
in
pervasive.
Life After Television? I
think I mentioned that porn is pretty hard to escape. But anyway.
Okay, so
but I was wrong. I was
what I'm
wrong.
trying to say is it was a wonderfully optimistic. I still remember I went through it in one reading. I started it at lunchtime, and I neglected my work for the rest of the day because, in any event, it was a wonderful book. But it didn't work out as happily as one would have expected from reading that book. Father of children, you're a father of children. You have a grandchild. The kids have these phones in their hands so long that attention spans suffer, family conversations. Here's Henry Kissinger again. Inundated via social media with the opinions of multitudes, users are diverted from introspection. These pressures weaken the fortitude required to develop and sustain convictions that can be implemented only by traveling a lonely road, which is the essence of creativity, close quote. What do you do with this argument that it didn't work out?
Yeah.
Technology has not ennobled us. It's made us passive and uncreative and lonely.
Well, I think we were passive, uncreative, and lonely before. I think there's a certain illusion of a golden age that somehow we had privacy, we had creativity, we attained virtue in a different way than we do today. I'm sort of skeptical of the golden age idea, but I'm also skeptical of the idea that this technology is the eschaton, that it's the final thing, that this...
The blockchain, what you're talking about
AI.
The
AI and all these Google-era stuff that produced the effects that you're describing. And I agree with the effects you're describing, essentially. But I do believe that the blockchain and related cryptographic technologies, it's part of a creative insurgency, are an almost perfect answer to the problems that currently afflict the net.
Let me try one more.
They provide this distribution of intelligence and distribution of private rights and points of view that has been lost to some extent in the cloud.
Let me try one more line of attack on an old friend who knows 1,000 times more about all this than I do, but it's a layman's attack.
Okay.
And it's this. In Life After Television, published in 1990, and again, I can just remember what an event it was to read that book. It was wonderfully optimistic. This is going to make things better. Well, actually, we have all the kludge that you were talking about, the ads we don't want, all that we just discussed. And now you write Life After Google. This is it. Blockchain is going to solve all the problems. And so, what about original sin? What about we're stuck with this? Or what about, I'm thinking now, you brush against theology, and I know it interests you. What about 20th century theologian Jacques Maritain, who argued that as sin and redemption work themselves out in history, things are getting better, but also worse at the same time. And that is the human condition. So even blockchain is another tool. It will be morally neutral. It'll have wonderful benefits, but it may have significant costs. I'm trying to get George Gilder to accept some piece of the tragic view of life.
Well, I loved Unamuno's The Tragic View of Life. Ortega y Gasset was one of my favorite philosophers.
All right.
And so I accept the tragic view of life. We're all going to die. We're all...
Blockchain won't solve that one.
Blockchain won't solve that one. Blockchain won't solve many of the intrinsic torments of life and sin on this earth. I readily acknowledge that. Blockchain is part of the public world where the great human adventures are conducted, the great new companies are launched, the continued dynamism of human creativity is expressed. And what I'm arguing against is what Bill Buckley used to call immanentizing the eschaton, imagining that some technology that you've come up with last week is the final technology that will end the human adventure, that will subsume all our minds in the clouds, governed by 8 giant companies in China and the U.S., and with some few nerds in Israel contributing all the new ideas. This is the vision that I don't think is going to prevail. I think the human adventure will continue after Google.
George Gilder, author of Life After Google, thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Peter Robinson for Uncommon Knowledge and the Hoover Institution. Thanks for joining us.